Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited. It's not raining. Y'all look great. We had breakfast. We're about to celebrate democracy this morning. My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm an assistant director at the Department of Planning, focused on equity, engagement, and communications. And I want to welcome everyone to our kickoff community workshop for Census 2020. We're going to learn a lot about what's going to be new about the census, how you can get involved, and then at the end of the program, after we're briefed by our Federal Census Bureau friends, we're going to separate into our work groups to learn more about how we can update our draft plan. But we want to begin this morning with some really inspirational words from the leadership in our city and state. So without further ado, I want to introduce to some, but most of us, we all know, our 50th Mayor of Baltimore City, Mayor Catherine E. Pugh.
So we're really excited to get started this morning, but as Barbara, our senator, reminded me that the next time we do this, that we'll make sure that we do it where there's free parking. We've got all these wonderful schools and brand new schools, so we'll make sure that we take that in consideration. But I wanted to take a moment to say I think this is a great turnout for so many people coming down this early in the morning. I've met some of you late last night who are out. There's so many activities going on in the city. This is Fleet Week coming up. The Baltimore Book Festival is taking place. The festival around the harbor is also taking place. This is a very active and engaged city, and this is going to be the most active and engaged committee of folks to make sure that we get our count and we get it right. Y'all can applaud that. So I wanted to take a moment to say good morning to Senator Ben Cardin, also to our Senator Barbara Mikulski. I understand Congressman Cummins is not with us. He had a scheduling conflict. Congressman John Sarbanes, I know, will probably be in and out. And also just the representatives from the U.S. Census Bureau. You all can wave your hands. We thank you for being with us. You know, this is probably one of the most important things that we will do together, and that is to make sure that we get this count right. And for those of you who don't know, every person that does not get counted will cost us about $1,800 a person every year for the next 10 years. We need those federal dollars. They make a difference in terms of how we continue to move our city forward. And let me just say, as the chair of the U.S. Census for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, we have laid out a format for other cities around the country to follow. And my head of government relations was down in Columbia just yesterday, senators, representing Baltimore, only to learn that we're so far ahead of everybody else. And let me tell you one of the other reasons. You know, our former Senator Barbara Mikulski came to our office to make sure that we were whipped up and in shape and ready to go. I also want to thank Stephanie and the Department of Planning. And this is what I talk about when I say how cities really move forward. It's really about what you did before and how you build on making it better the next go round. Oftentimes what happens when different mayors come in, we want to tear down the old process and want to start all over again, and then the process becomes longer and we don't get to where we need to get to, and that is to make sure that every single individual is counted. You know, what that represents for us just in Baltimore City is nearly $300 million in terms of income for the city for all the issues, $300 million in terms of all the issues that we will be facing. So what I'm saying to the Complete Count Committee, we need you. We need your effort. And one of the messages that I continue to send is that it really is about authentic voices in neighborhoods and communities that can help us to get the count right. You all should know that Maryland is engaged in the lawsuit because we believe, like most cities believe, and most states in this country believe, that this is not about citizenship. This is about where you reside. And we believe that everything is trying to be done to make sure that we don't get our counts right. This will be the first year. This will be the first time in the history of the census that you will be doing the census online. So what does that mean? That means that we will take every opportunity to provide our citizens with opportunities, whether it is opening up the libraries, extending those hours, opening up our schools, extending those hours, having parent and teachers night where we do nothing but help people fill out the census. We'll be working with our churches and our parishes to make sure that, again, authentic voices are helping us to get the count right. And so, again, I am very excited about this group coming together. This is not the first gathering of folks who will be engaged in the census process. But what I want to say to each and every one of you is that you are important to this effort. And we are going to encourage you to bring more people because we've got to hire people to make sure that we're getting the count right. I was just in Washington, D.C., Senators, talking with members of the philanthropic community about the need for them to step up to the plate because we know that the federal government is not going to provide the promotional dollars that they did a decade ago to make sure that every person is counted. And so we're going to be calling on our philanthropic and our business partners to say, come on, this is something that you can help us to do in the best manner possible. So again, I'm excited. I know that we're headed in the right direction, but again, I want to make sure that we do this right and that your efforts will not be in vain and that you will have the kind of information that is necessary. That's what these workshops are about today, and I hope that you find yourselves thoroughly engaged. Thank you so much. And so I think I get the honor of introducing one of our fabulous honorary co-chairs of the 2020 census, our senator, your former senator, the Senator Ben, stay seated. I know you are. Barbara Mikulski.
I'm back. My little stool and everything else. Good morning, Baltimore. Good morning. I am so glad to see all of you, to come here, to learn how to make sure that Baltimore gets its fair share. If you send the money to Washington, you ought to get it back, and you ought to be able to get back so that we can lift up our children, provide a helping hand to our seniors, and make sure we work with this gifted and talented mayor to get us ready for the future. And we're here to tell you how to do it. I am so glad to be here with my colleague, Senator Cardin. We served together in the Senate, and we are Team Maryland 100%. And once a senator, always a senator. And Ben, we think you're doing such a great job in Washington. We're fortunate you could be here with us today. You know, I got into politics stopping the highway, and you thought you were going to be in politics trying to stop a Supreme Court nomination. We ought to hear for our, aren't we proud? I'm going to say this to ladies. Aren't you proud of the Democratic men in the Senate standing up and standing up? And to all the good guys in the office, in the audience, we thank you. But let me tell you what's happening. First of all, we're so proud of our mayor, who's leading the national charge on Census 2020. And so the question is, Senator Barb, why in 2018, on a Saturday morning, on our own time and our own dime, are we talking about this? We need to organize and mobilize and strategize now, so when we do the census, we are ready to roll. We are ready to roll because we don't want an undercount. We don't want anybody overlooked. undercounted in this city and in this country. Everybody counts, and everybody should be counted. Now, the mayor asked me to be honorary co-chair, and I said, what did that mean? You know, I'm a retired senior citizen now. I don't have my little bus card with me this morning, but I got my AARP discount card. Never go home without that. But the fact is that it's Congressman Elijah Cummings and former Mayor, now President Kurt Schmoke. And we are absolutely committed, working with the Maryland delegation, led by Senator Cardin, the senior senator, and all of you in the community. And why is this important? First of all, it's a constitutional mandate. The Constitution said we're going to count everybody living in the United States every 10 years so we can make plans on how things should be going from our political representation to the distribution of federal funds. It's a constitutional mandate to do this, and it's of residents, not citizens. So if you've been living here for more than a couple of years, you are to be counted. Whether it's our college students who are visiting us, whether it's you've lived in your home in Northwood or Edmondson Village for more than 20 years, you count. And one of the reasons it counts is that 85% of all federal funds that will come to Baltimore will be based on the census. 85% of the money coming to the city of Baltimore, to this mayor, and then also to the governor, is based on the census, based on a formula. If you look just at the M words, mass transit, remember how we lost that red line? Well, we don't want to be sidelined, so we want mass transit money. It also determines our Medicaid reimbursement, our children's health programs, and a variety of programs. Excuse me, it's the humidity today. So when we look at our federal funds, Section 8 housing, Medicaid, the CHIP program, we could go through item after item, and you're going to hear this from our Census Bureau. So as the delegation works hard to put money in the federal checkbook, we want to make sure we get our fair share back. If we don't make sure that everybody is counted, we're going to lose out. And for all of you who work so hard in the community, every day in every way, to make it a better place to live, you want to close that disparity gap. In our schools, we want to close the achievement gap. For our seniors, we want to close the hunger gap.
Yes.
And we also want to close that job gap. So we want to make sure we're getting our community ready for the future. So the census will occur in the spring of 2020. But we have to think now about how do we get ready. First of all, we've got to know that it's coming. Second, we've got to do an inventory of our resources. What is it that we would have that helps us do it? What is it that would be in our way that would help curtail us? And what is the role that everybody can play and play? Now remember, it's resident, not citizen, and this is not to count you to pay more taxes. It's to make have you counted so we get our tax money back, that we get our fair share. This is a fair share effort. If you send money to Washington through your taxes, it should be coming back through the resources that are going to lift, that continue to lift our program up. So we now have to be vigilant that we don't have census suppression. Now, there are a lot of people in this room that know the history of the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement was to guarantee a lot of rights to people of color who were left out. But there was, and one of them was the Voting Rights Act. but there's been voter suppression. There are those in Washington, whose name I will not speak, know that this is a constitutional mandate, but just like they do voter suppression, they'd like to do census suppression. So just be aware, this is a great march for not only funds, but for our freedom. This is a great march for our funds and our freedom. So what is census suppression? First of all, not giving the census enough money. This delegation, led by Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen, and leading the team in the House, Congressman Elijah Cummings, is to make sure there's enough money so that they can do the education, do the training, do what our mayor has talked about, promotional material. So they want that. Then the other, there is this whole thing of adding a question related to citizenship, and that is to discourage our Latino community, and we want you to know we're on your side. The Leadership Conference on Civil Rights, now headed up by Ms. Vita Gupta, who knows our town very well. Yes. Mayor, you know her. She was with the Obama Justice Department administration, will be leading a national lawsuit, and it'll go all the way up to the Supreme Court. So to everyone here, we want to make sure you're counted. But also we want to make sure that there's no hidden figures. That there are no hidden figures. We have some tough populations. We have the homeless. They should be counted. We have seniors. It's going to be a problem because it's going to be done through the computer. They're going to need trusted places to go. Just like you're organizing souls to the polls, we're going to say that there's a consensus to do the census. I just made that up. I still got game, girlfriend. I still got a little game going. So, but seriously, but this is where it comes. And I just want to say this to the model. We're going to be reaching out to the business community because we want business, particularly the big guys, to be model employers. Now, what does a model employer mean? So I'm currently a professor at Johns Hopkins University. So if you take who Hopkins hires at the hospital and their academic institutions and their vendors through their other purchasing programs, Hopkins touches over 20,000 people. If Hopkins alone insists that everyone who works for Hopkins and everyone who is a vendor with Hopkins does the census, we've already done 20,000. So we're going to go to the big guys, the telephone company. I still call it the gas and electric company, okay? But the utility companies and so on to be able to do that. But we're going to do more. And we want to say to those there, like the universities, like Morgan, like Hopkins, like the University of Baltimore, that they could go to the trusted places that the mayor will identify, like the library, that if you get your census in the mail and you don't, through your internet and you don't know what to do with it, you could go to the library. But the library can't do this on its own, that there'd be people there who speak different languages, that they speak the language of a computer. A lot of our people, we have digital deserts in Baltimore. 74,000 people in this town don't have digital access. It's just like food deserts, they're digital deserts. And by the way, that census money would come back to where we would have broadband so that our boys and girls could do their homework, so their mothers and fathers could be looking for jobs, and so that we could all be working together. So we're going to be organizing for that. So when the census books are closed, we will know that in Baltimore, everybody counts. Everybody counts. Under the law, under the Constitution, everybody should be counted, and we would have done it in a way that builds community, that we will organize ourselves through business, community groups, faith-based organizations, where everyone will be helping others to complete the census, and so that at the end of the day, we will have made new friends. We would have found new neighbors. we would have built a better Baltimore, and we would have done it together. I so look forward to working with you under the leadership of our mayor, being part of Team Maryland still, and I just want to say, Mayor, and to the people of Baltimore, may the force be with us. There you go. I just got to watch where I move.
I'm going to have our great Senator Ben Cardin share a few words with us, and after he comes up, then I'll introduce our other active co-chairs. Our senator, your Senator, Ben Cardin.
Mayor Pugh, thank you very much. We really appreciate your leadership here in Baltimore, but I want to thank you also for your leadership at the national level. Yes, it's critically important that we get the vote count for Baltimore on the census. That's absolutely critically important. But it's important for the urban centers of America to be properly treated through the appropriation process. And what Mayor Pugh is doing nationally is making sure that the urban centers of America, that we are prepared for the census. So thank you for your national leadership in addition to helping the people of Baltimore City. And to Barbara Mikulski, what else can I say? I mean, she is the leader of Team Maryland Emeritus. We will never have a stronger leader of Team Maryland. I want first, I'm sure that my colleagues would agree that after the last elections, people have come up to us and say, what can you do? How can you get involved in the political system? How can you get involved in policies? They watched what happened in Washington this week, and they say, what can we do? What can we do about what is happening? Well, I'll tell you one thing you can do that can make a huge difference, and that is work on the census to get the vote, the count right, because that's political empowerment. That's how congressional districts are reapportioned, based upon the numbers of the census. So this is about political empowerment. Senator Mikulski talked about the civil rights and voting, a critically important thing. One of the reasons why there are forces out there that don't want everyone counted in the census is because of the political lines for representation. So we have to make sure that we have everyone counted. And it is so important for the neighborhoods to organize. You can help us find the people and give them the confidence to fill out the forms. I don't want to shock you, but there's a lot of people that have a mistrust for government these days. And they get this form from the government, or someone's knocking on their door from the government. They don't know whether they can trust them. They can trust you. You're their neighbor. You're their friend. You can explain to them. They said, I heard they asked you if you're a citizen. I don't want to take, I'm intimidated. But you can explain to them that the census information is 100% confidential from the point of view of just using the information for count. That's what it's for. You are protected under law. So you can explain that and say, this is about getting money for our community. This is about the rec center we want built. This is about our schools. This is about having what we need. And you can empower your community and help us get the resources that you need. What I said about Senator Mikulski and Team Maryland is so accurate. She kept Team Maryland together as our senior senator. And I'm not just talking about our federal delegation, our state delegation, our counties, and our city. We work together as a team. We identify priorities. Getting the census count right is a priority for our Team Maryland. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that happens. Senator Mikulski, we miss you in Washington. We text back and forth. And I could see at times when there's tense moments in Washington that Senator Mikulski's enjoying the fact that she's not in Washington, but
I'm a C-SPAN junkie.
but we had her as the top person on the Appropriations Committee.
Yes.
She made sure the Census Bureau got everything they needed in order to make sure they had the resources to get the count right. Well, I want to thank our team, Maryland, for stepping in and doing everything they can. Tutored by Senator Mikulski, we have Chris Van Hollen and we have Dutch Rupertsberger, who serves on the Appropriations Committee. And we did very well in this appropriation year to get additional funds to the Census Bureau. That's Team Maryland fighting for the funds we need so we have the resources. I want to thank John Sarbanes, serves on the Commerce Committee. Senator Mikulski mentioned the fact that we have a question that could be asked about citizenship. We're fighting that in the courts. And John Sarbanes has been in the front about that impact it could have on intimidating people filling out their Census Bureau. And Madam Mayor, you couldn't have picked a stronger person to work with Senator Mikulski than Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings, who serves in a critical leadership position in the House, who understands the neighborhoods. We have a great team, Kurt Schmoke, we have a great team out there in order to get the count. But we need you. We need the community people. And it needs to be done now. It can't be done in 2020. You have to be prepared for it. So I just wanted to come by to thank you all for what you're doing, for being here on a Saturday morning, trying to find parking. I appreciate that very much. It's so important. We are going to continue to make this effort until we find every person. And it is every person who's physically present in our state needs to be counted, and our city needs to be counted. And we'll use every tool available. We know the obstacles we have, but as the mayor pointed out, there's a lot of money at stake, and there's a lot of political power at stake, and there will be forces out there that'll be working against us. We're used to that, and we're going to achieve our objective. I'm proud to be on Team Maryland, and I'm proud to be part of this group. Thank you.
I think he'll probably come back. I noticed that State Senator-elect Antonio Hayes was here with us as well. But I just want to take a moment to introduce our active co-chairs. And the reason this is important is, one, when I called Barbara Mikulski and I said, look, I need you to be the honorary co-chair. And she said, well, wait a minute, now, what's my staff going to be? Explain all of this to me. What is it that you're asking me to do? You know I'm retired, but, I need to, so we text back and forth, and I was like, I called Pete, I said, gosh, I just really hope she does this. And so then finally she says, I'm with you. And I said, Senator, I want you to know that we're going to have co-chairs who are going to be on the ground, making sure that we get this done. And the other thing you should know is that what I said was that we need to make sure that we're building up other parts of our community to be able to know how to do this work. And so I wanted to partner some young people in this process as well. Many of you know John Willis. He's been with us. He's done this before. Stand up, John. Fagan Harris, one of our millennials, is out and won't be here today, but is thoroughly engaged. And I'd like to introduce you to Felicia Porter. Felicia, stand up. You know, we got to bridge these generational gaps so that we make sure that everybody is included, but more importantly, that we're learning. And you'll hear about the various subcommittees that are engaged as well. I also want to take a moment to give a shout out to Tom Soser, who is retiring from our planning department, who really has been around for 31 years. But again, you talk about building on what you have and moving forward, and it was Tom's effort that really has helped us to get to where we are today. Thank you.
Yes.